समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
This is a particularly sad day. It's also quite difficult to be talking on cut the clutter about this, because how do we declutter something that we know so little about? I'm talking about the unfortunate crash in Dubai at the Dubai Air Show, in which an Indian Air Force Tejas, being flown by Wing Commander Namansh Sayal, crashed while doing a downward maneuver and looks like was not able to regain height. That is what you see on the pictures. It's a very sad incident. Also because the pilot lost his life. These days ejection seats are very good, and it is not often that you have fatal crashes. However, flying in air shows, doing aerobatic flying is always risky, and when you are at an air show, you also tend to push at the boundaries of what your body and what the aircraft in terms of its design and technology can do. That's why air shows in particular are risky places to be, to the extent that some countries or some cities might even have banned them. We have the example of Ukraine. In 2002, they had a crash of a Russian Sukhoi 27, which crashed and plowed into a crowd, killing about 85 people. After that, Ukrainians banned air shows, and Russian pilots, as we know, have a reputation for being really daring flyers. One of those was also flying at Su-57 at Dubai and bowing everybody, as were our pilots flying the Tejas every day. Tejas, remember, is a single-engine aircraft, unlike Sukhoi 57 or Sukhoi 30, which are twin-engine aircraft, or Rafale, a twin-engine aircraft. This is a single-engine aircraft, and we were all watching what complex maneuvers this aircraft was doing and the pilots were doing. I'm not sure it was the same pilot every day. Probably these were different pilots, and we were all very impressed. However, today it ended in tragedy. Now, how much do we know about it? What do we understand about fighter flying, and that too in dangerous situations, and that too in situations where you obviously, as I said, push at the limits of your own endurance, your own machine's capabilities. That we'll talk about. With me is Snehesh Alex Philip, our defense editor, who's been following this story. So we will talk about this. Snehesh will help us understand this a little bit better. I will only mention something that Air Commodore Jasjeet Singh, former Indian Air Force veteran MiG-21 pilot, who also worked with us for several years at the Indian Express as our strategic affairs consulting editor at the Indian Express. He used to say that there is an old Royal Air Force RAF line that the two most dangerous professions in the world are coal mining and fighter flying. And then he would add, but you and I know which one is a lot more fun and even more rewarding. Now, and he's somebody who knew the pain of fighter flying, because his son had ejected in a fighter crash, in a MiG-29 crash as well, and he took it in his stride. His son survived, and I would often meet him flying Jet Airways flights. I don't know which airline he's flying for now. So wherever you are, Ajay Singh, I hope you are happy, you are doing well. I'm sure you are. Best wishes to you. On which note, I will come to Snehesh. Snehesh, what do we know about what has happened? And is there something that the Air Force is telling you about this?
Well, what has happened is a very tragic incident in which we had Wing Commander Namansh Sayal, who was flying this Tejas aircraft, single-engine aircraft, as rightly mentioned, of the Indian Air Force. It was doing his aerobatics, and when it was doing a low maneuver is when it crashed into a ball of fire. There was no time left for him to eject, so he went down with the fighter itself, and that has been tragic. And as you rightly mentioned, is the fact that flying a fighter itself is very challenging. It's a risky profession, right?
And very lonely. I mean, you're truly lonely at the top.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when they are taking part in a air show, it becomes even more difficult because the pilots carry out the kind of maneuver that they would not do in the normal course of flying. And that is why you have pilots who complete an X number of hours and then they get trained as air show pilots, a part of the aerobatics team. So they're the skilled pilots who are training for such shows. For example, the Su-57 pilot that you mentioned, the Su-57 team was at the air show in Bangalore also, right? And where they did some amazing flying, right?
Yeah, and you usually get those videos with the caption, "This crazy Russian pilot."
Yeah, the crazy Russian pilots. So that is something which is there. For example, in Pakistan, right? There is a lot of social media, slugfest that is happening out there, where there are some Pakistani troll handles which are trolling India for whatever reason they have. But the fact is that it's a loss. So, for example, Pakistan lost an F-16 in 2020 near Islamabad when they were practicing for the National Day parade. That's when they crashed. So crashes are something that happens. For example, I was just looking at the figures for this year itself. This is the fourth. The Tejas is the fourth crash to have taken place at an air show in 2025. The last was on August 28th when a Polish Air Force pilot was killed when his F-16 crashed at the random airport during a rehearsal for the random air show. And the show was subsequently cancelled. Right? You mentioned about the one in Ukraine in which 85 people got killed. Then you also have the infamous one in 1988, the Ramstein air show disaster in which in Germany, in which you had three Italian Air Force pilots, which collided, and it eventually fell in front of the spectators, and eventually
they plowed into spectators. There were more than 300,000 people watching.
There were more than 300,000.
This was the Italian Air Force's aerobatic team, built on Italy's homemade aeromachi.
Aeromachi
jets, and they were praised and seen all over the world.
Absolutely, and that was again a tragic crash which led to 70 fatalities, of which 67 were spectators and obviously 3 pilots,
and many injured,
and about close to about 350 were severely injured, and most of them had severe burn injuries, but they eventually survived.
The aircraft had fuel. So tell me, this year, which are the other 3? You said 4 accidents have taken place this year in air shows.
Yeah. So besides it, so for example, on the one that I'd spoken about was in August. Then on March 20th this year, a member of the Paul Bennett Sky Aces formation aerobatic team crashed and was injured at an air show in Australia. Again, on March 22nd, pilot James O'Connell died after his Aeromachi MB326 crashed during performance at the West Coast Air Show held in South Africa. So these are the disasters that have taken place here. So air shows, while it is fun, it is great. It's fun to watch. It's a thrilling experience, but it also comes with its own dangers, not just for the pilots, but also for people who are witnessing it. So that's why Ukraine has now banned air show after the tragic the incident back then.
So what is the Air Force saying on this so far?
See, the Air Force has come out with a statement stating the fact that this aircraft are crashed. Now they've gone in for a court of inquiry has been instituted into this.
As
always happens. Now the court of inquiry, which will look into certain aspects. See, I don't want to speculate on what is being speculated by a lot of others on what are the reasons, whether it was. What error it was. I think a court of inquiry would eventually come out with its report, and hopefully it should come out with a report soon once the FDR, flight data recorder is already taken into account. So it will look into what caused this particular crash. Was there Was there any engine issue, which is unlikely to be the case? But the fact is that the pilot did not have enough gap to
Space.
space to go up, right, to avoid that particular crash. So it will look at why the aircraft had a particular angle that it had. So multiple reasons that the Air Force will look into, and that the only the court of inquiry would eventually reveal.
Sneha, Tejas is a new aircraft. We had only 38 with the Air Force. Now, with any new aircraft type, there are initial issues with safety, crashes, because the machine is settling down, it's going through many modifications. Pilots are learning it, everybody is learning it. What has been Tejas's record so far? And what is the record, say, of competing products, most importantly for us from Pakistan?
See, I might critique the Tejas on multiple fronts. There is a capability gap that is there on how fast paced the production should have been, or the lack of pace when it comes to production of the Tejas. But one thing that nobody can really say about the Tejas is question the Tejas when it comes to safety records, right? It first took its flight in 2001. Since then, it has had zero crashes. The first crash happened
Until 2024.
until last year, 2024, when Tejas of the Indian Air Force crashed while it was flying back after taking part in an exercise, right? An exercise which was also witnessed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And this is the second crash. The JF-17 is
In
something.
that one, the pilot survived.
The pilot survived. In this one, tragically, he couldn't. If you look at the JF-17 itself, JF-17 is also
The Pakistani,
the Pakistani,
sort of contemporary, but a little bit ahead of.
sort of
the
contemporary in the sense that I think the Tejas wasn't the first flight. It was in 2001. The JF-17 would have been in 2003, but the JF-17s have been inducted in larger numbers.
Yeah, that's a joint venture with China.
That's a joint venture
That's
with
Pakistani
China.
only name, because
Yeah.
they mainly make the dhacha of it.
The frame is
the rest comes from
fuselage.
China. The engine comes from Russia.
Yeah. So they've had 5 crashes till now. So when I'm saying 5 crashes, I'm not comparing JF-17 with the Tejas, but it's a matter of fact that the JF-17 did have those 5 crashes, and Tejas had 2 crashes. That's what the statistics say. So would these crashes mean that the aircraft is unsafe? I wouldn't say so, right? In 2 crashes, the reasons of these crashes are totally different. A lot of times it is due to some mechanical issue that would be there, but there is no design flaw. Even the crash, this court of inquiry into the last year's crash is still has not been declassified yet. But that has ruled out pilot error. But at the same time, it has also ruled out any kind of design flaw in the Tejas aircraft itself. And similarly, I'm sure that's what goes for the JF-17s, because the fighters, the more you fly, the crashes will. It's something which needs to be avoided, but it's something which is inevitable also. Do happen.
Yeah. So we have to have that open-minded approach to these.
Yeah.
Because when you hear about one, particularly we as civilians, we get scared even when a plane shakes a little bit, even when a big Boeing or Airbus shakes a little bit in turbulence.
Yeah.
For us, it looks quite shocking, and then you start worrying. So my own personal experience, I saw one such crash myself. That was the 1989 Air Force Day at Palam on 8th of October. And that is when a Mirage 2000, flown by Wing Commander Ramesh Joe Bakshi, who was then commanding the 7th Squadron, Battle Axis of Indian Air Force, he was carrying out a sole aerobatic show. And he was carrying out a downward Charlie like this and could not come out of that and crashed. And we saw a lot of debris flying, some little fires breaking out here and there, and fortunately it was away from
the spectators,
from the crowd, because the defense minister was there, the air chief was there, we were also there. So when you see it, it's a very traumatic.
Of course
moment.
it is, yeah.
And after that, and before that, in 1980, on 23rd of October 1980, a Sukhoi 7. At that point, if you Google it, you will find it as Sukhoi 22. That was a newer version. That crashed very close to Delhi, near Najafgarh, because it had a bird strike. So as this went on, at some point of time, Government of India decided that in fly pasts now or aerobatics on the day of Republic Day, only twin-engined aircraft will be lost. That was a precaution against bird hits because
Yeah.
Delhi area is filled with birds, and Republic Day, particularly when so many people come in, there is food, and wherever there is food, then kites will come
Exactly.
in, and they are heavy birds.
So that's the reason why before every Republic Day, parade, and when the practice session starts, Air Force will come out with multiple notices on X and in TV,
And
ads
they
and
shut
newspapers.
they shut down butcheries around Delhi.
Yeah, and they say that please don't throw garbage outside. So the Air Force goes in, makes a cleanliness appeal around the time of Republic Day, and the reason why is because the birds become a huge threat.
Yeah. So tell me, Snehesh, what does this mean for Tejas, and what does this mean for the IAF?
See, for the IAF, I think this is also a grim reminder or a moment for the IAF to look at the state of affairs as far as the fighters are concerned, right? Again, while as I said earlier, Tejas has an excellent safety record, but the fact of the matter is that Tejas is still delayed, right? Tejas as a fighter at this particular moment, you know India should have been flying the Tejas Mark II, right? At least India should have been flying the Tejas Mark 1A itself, which is still not
In strength.
yeah, in strength.
strength.
But the 1A, even not a single 1A has been delivered to the Air Force yet. And even if you look at this, the Tejas Mark 1, you mentioned that the Air Force had got 38 of them. The fact is that the Air Force are ordered for 40 of them. 32 was, single seat fighters, and 8 of them were the trainer version. Of the 8, only 6 have been delivered so far.
So 2 trainers from Mark 1 have still not come in.
Have still not come in, right? Now, for example, the Tejas Mark 1A contract was signed in 2021. The deliveries were supposed to start from February 2024, March 2024, right? Right now we are in November 2025, and 2 months back I'd done a story when this additional for 97 more Tejas Mark 1 were signed. At that time the HAL had announced that the first 2 would be delivered end of October. And it's a story that I had myself reported on based on source-based information. And then I did a story saying that the latest by which it would be delivered is only March 2026. Now, of course, we got a lot of, social media
Criticism,
blowback,
yes.
criticism, right? But the fact is that is what it is. So while there is a huge importance need to support what is the Tejas program itself, there I think also needs to be questions to be raised. Now you can't hide. Now, one of the big things that they were spoke about was the fact that the engines were not there. Yes, the engines were not there. It's a
They
fact.
were delayed by the
They were
Americans,
delayed,
yes.
right? But they were also flying on the category B engines, which are the earlier engines that came for the previous program, some of which they already have, which were flying on them. But now the engines have also come, right? But why is that? And I go back to the fact that what the Air Force Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh had said in Bangalore, and he had mentioned that displaying Tejas as Tejas Mark 1A doesn't make it a Tejas Mark 1A. As you said, the dhancha is the same as that, right? But the capabilities is what makes it. So I think the effort is on to ensure that these capabilities are integrated. And the Air Force is very clear that they will not accept a Tejas Mark 1A, which is not a Tejas Mark 1A in true sense.
Which is suboptimal.
The Air Force is very clear that they would not accept an aircraft and then say कि बाद में उसका upgrade करते रहेंगे, जुगाड़ करते रहेंगे. Because the Tejas Mark 1A itself was supposed to be a compromise. It's a compromise. Because the Air Force, and thanks to Manohar Parrikar, who literally arm twisted the Air Force, forced the Air Force to fully back the Tejas program in a way that which was beneficial to everyone involved. the Air Force wanted from Tejas Mark 1, the Air Force wanted the Tejas Mark 2. But then it would have taken time, right? So in the meanwhile, it was the HAL the RDAF which had offered the Tejas Mark 1A.
That is Aeronautical Development Authority.
Yeah. So they had come out with the Tejas Mark 1A. And at that time in 2015, and I've reported this, is the fact that the Air Force was promised that the first flight of the Tejas Mark 2 will happen in 2022. So, but there's a huge delay, right? And these delays will eventually cost cost the country, right? I think that is something that now the government is also very aware of, and that's why you'll have in the coming few months you will have some news developments on that front about what steps are being taken.
Because the government now does seem to have a sense of urgency.
Of course, the government has a sense of urgency, because right now, if you look at the fighter squadrons of fighter strength of the Indian Air Force is concerned, it is back to what it was in the early 1960s, right? You're talking about developing a 4.5 generation aircraft when a country like China, which is one of the main adversary as far as India is concerned, is already flying what they claim is the 6th generation aircraft, right? So there's a huge difference. So I think even when it comes to, there are multiple, it's not just the fighters, there are multiple other critical areas where the Air Force really lacks, when it comes to air-to-air refueling, when it comes to air-to-air capabilities,
Airborne early warning systems.
Yeah, airborne early warning systems. The multiple areas where the Air Force finds itself in a corner, right?
Because Air Force is very capital intensive.
It's very tech intensive thing, So at tech and the technology doesn't wait for anyone. The technology keeps changing, right? If you look at it from a holistic point of view, there is some sort of blame which goes to the Air Force also. But then a lot of blame also goes into the other agencies involved in this whole process. So eventually what happens is that it's not just the Air Force which suffers, it's the country that suffers.
We should have been having this discussion on any other day, not necessarily on this one. But this unfortunate incident has happened. Our condolences to the family, to the friends of Wing Commander Seal. This has also given us a moment to reflect on many of these challenges. So thank you very much, Snehesh.
Thank you.
I hope we don't have to do such a thing ever again.
Hope so.